Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an electrifying episode of Rift Valley Tube, your source for thought, provoking discussions, and insightful analysis. I'm your host, Suleiman Ali, and today we're diving deep into the annals of history to uncover a phenomenon that has plagued nations for centuries. Throughout history, a recurring pattern has emerged, an eerie silence from leaders when faced with internal civil wars within their nations. But fear not, dear listeners, for we are on a journey to unravel the intricacies of this enigmatic silence. We'll shine a bright light on the reasons behind it and uncover the hidden truths. But first, Happy Ethiopian New Year. As we stand in 2016, I wish you all peace, peace, and peace. May this new year bring joy, prosperity, and unity to your lives. Now, let's jump right into it. One of the foremost reasons for leaders' hesitance in acknowledging internal civil wars is the burning desire to preserve their grip on power and safeguard their reputation. The world has witnessed a recurring pattern in the annals of history, an eerie silence from leaders when it comes to acknowledging internal civil wars within their nations. This episode aims to unravel the intricacies of this phenomenon, shedding light on the reasons behind such a veiled silence. While we explore these compelling motives, our focus remains firmly on the current situation in Ethiopia, where Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed faces criticism for his reluctance to openly address the civil war in the Amhara region. Preservation of power and reputation. One of the foremost reasons for leaders' hesitance in acknowledging internal civil wars is the burning desire to preserve their grip on power and safeguard their reputation. To admit the existence of a civil war is often synonymous with an admission of failure in leadership, which in turn can pave the way for a loss of public support, calls for resignation, or even full-blown rebellion against the government. Let's look into the case of President Nicolae Ceausescu, Romania. The Romanian Revolution of 1989 was ignited by widespread discontent. With Ceausescu's oppressive regime, economic hardships, censorship, and human rights abuses had fomented discontent for years. The uprising began in the city of Timisoara and quickly spread to Bucharest, the capital. Ceausescu's initial denial of the protests mirrored his long-standing refusal to acknowledge the deteriorating living conditions and human rights violations in Romania. As the protests intensified, Ceausescu's denial persisted. Even as violence erupted, the international community closely watched the events in Romania, with Western governments and media condemning Ceausescu's regime. Ultimately, Ceausescu's refusal to acknowledge the magnitude of the crisis and address the people's grievances led to his downfall. The international community supported the Romanian people's calls for change. Ceausescu captured and tried and executed in a matter of days. In Iraq, the Kurdish uprising and Shia insurgency in Iraq in 1991 were rooted in long-standing ethnic and sectarian tensions exacerbated by President Saddam Hussein's brutal rule. The Kurds in the north and Shia Muslims in the south had faced discrimination and violence for years. The Gulf War of 1991 further inflamed these tensions, and when the war ended, Kurdish and Shia groups seized the opportunity to rise against Saddam Hussein's regime, hoping for international support. Saddam Hussein's denial of the uprisings was an attempt to suppress these movements. In response to the violence, the international community, particularly Western governments, expressed concern and called for the protection of Kurdish and Shia populations. The United States, the United Kingdom, and France established no-fly zones in northern and southern Iraq to shield these groups from further attacks. The First Congo War of the 1990s was fueled by regional conflicts, ethnic tensions, and the desire to remove President Mobutu Sese from power. The conflict began when neighboring countries, including Rwanda and Uganda, supported rebel groups in Syria. Mobutu downplayed the conflict scale and the involvement of foreign actors to maintain a semblance of control. His denial was part of his strategy to deter international intervention while he clung to power. The international response to the First Congo War was multifaceted. The United Nations and Western governments tried to mediate the conflict, but the involvement of various rebel groups and foreign actors complicated the peace process. Eventually, Mobutu was ousted, and the conflict evolved into a broader regional struggle. The Syrian civil war began as a result of the Arab Spring protests that swept across the Middle East in 2011. Syrians took to the streets to demand political reforms and greater freedoms. But President Bashar Assad's government responded with violence. Assad's initial response to the protests was to label them as foreign conspiracies and terrorist actions. He refused to acknowledge the grievances of the Syrian people and escalated the conflict, leading to years of brutal civil war. The international community, particularly Western governments, condemned Assad's actions and supported opposition groups. The conflict in Syria resulted in significant international involvement, with various countries providing support to different factions. The resurgence of conflict with Kurdish militants in Turkey in 2015 was a resurgence of long-standing ethnic tensions. The breakdown of a ceasefire led to renewed violence, particularly in southeastern Turkey. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government initially downplayed the scale of the conflict, framing it as a fight against terrorism and separatism. The government's denial aimed to maintain national unity and downplay divisions. The international community, including Western governments, expressed concern over the escalating violence. Efforts to mediate the conflict faced challenges, and the situation remained tense in southeastern Turkey. Now, let's take a close look of Ethiopia. The silence surrounding the internal civil war in Ethiopia's Amhara region, with its staggering population of over 42 million people, and the reluctance of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to address it openly, raises profound concerns. He following aims to shed light on the consequences that the Prime Minister may face due to his silence on this critical issue. Firstly, internal unrest and dissent escalation. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed failure to acknowledge openly the civil war in the Amhara region could lead to a further escalation of internal unrest and dissent. The absence of a clear acknowledgement and a comprehensive strategy to address the conflict may embolden opposition groups and aggrieved communities, potentially fueling the violence and exacerbating humanitarian crises. The consequences of an escalation in internal unrest include increased human suffering, displacement of innocent civilians, and potential fragmentation within the nation, undermining Ethiopia's stability and unity. Secondly, eroding public trust and international isolation. The Prime Minister's reluctance to openly discuss the Amhara region's civil war could erode public trust and lead to international isolation. When leaders withhold critical information or downplay the gravity of a situation, it can result in a loss of credibility both domestically and on the global stage. Eroded public trust can translate into reduced support for the government, while international isolation can result in diplomatic and economic repercussions, potentially exacerbating Ethiopia's challenges. Thirdly, prolonged humanitarian crisis and economic fallout. The longer Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed remains silent on the civil war, the more prolonged the humanitarian crisis is likely to become. Inadequate acknowledgement and response to the conflict can impede humanitarian aid efforts, leaving vulnerable populations without essential support. Additionally, the economic fallout from a protracted conflict can exacerbate hardships for the country's citizens. Consequence: a prolonged humanitarian crisis not only deepens human suffering, but also damages the country's economic stability, hindering development and long-term recovery efforts. Leaders' decisions to shroud internal civil wars in silence are often rooted in complex motivations. Whether driven by political survival, international concerns, or the fear of escalation, their denial frequently results in prolonged violence, human suffering, and international consequences. Ethiopia's current situation serves as a stark reminder of the importance of acknowledging the existence of civil wars and addressing their root causes, a crucial step toward achieving lasting peace and stability. As history has shown, leaders who fail to openly recognize internal civil wars risk severe consequences, both for their nations and for themselves. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's handling of the civil war in the Amhara region will undoubtedly have a lasting impact on Ethiopia's future, its people, and his own political legacy. Acknowledging the conflict, seeking peaceful resolutions, and addressing the root causes remain essential steps toward achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I implore you all to remember the importance of acknowledging the existence of civil wars and addressing their root causes. It's a crucial step toward achieving lasting peace and stability. Once again, Happy Ethiopian New Year. May peace, and peace be with you all. Thank you for tuning in to Rift Valley Tube. I'm Suleiman Ali, signing off. And remember, stay curious and stay engaged. Hey, amazing folks out there in the digital universe. Your ticket to an endless adventure of knowledge and curiosity. But before we say goodbye, I've got a little challenge for you. Do you see that subscribe button? Give it a click and become a member of our knowledge-loving family. It's like joining a treasure hunt. You never know what gems you'll find next. Now, here's the part where you might feel just a smidge guilty. Think about all the friends, family, and social media followers who could use a dose of enlightenment and inspiration. Go ahead, click share, and sprinkle some wisdom into their lives. You'll be their hero. And don't forget to tap like if you enjoyed today's journey with us. Your support keeps our curiosity engine running. So, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, comment, share, and like. Be the catalyst of curiosity in your world. Thanks for being amazing. And remember, let's keep the knowledge flowing together. Catch you on the flip side.